Hey guys, Alex Cyclist here. Just wanted to give my first ride impressions here of the Specialized S-Works World Cup here. So blown away. Just getting it out there, just absolutely blown away. Coming from two brain bikes, I had a 19 Specialized Expert Epic, and then I had a 21 S-Works Epic with the revised brain in both the fork and the rear. And loved that bike. It was exhilarating. It was fun. It was playful. It was really something special. But I blew the brain fork, so I ended up putting a race day damper in. And the rear brain, although definitely better than the previous iterations, did have that notorious knock or clunk as it broke through that firm platform to sag and to travel. So that was probably something that I again had no problem living with, but I kind of got over it a little bit and just felt that the bike was really trying to be something that should have been more advanced for the time of bikes that we're dealing with here. I mean, in 2021, to go with all this hydraulic, brass mass, valved systems, just seemed a little bit outdated and just kind of got old kind of quickly. But I always missed that feeling of that bike. It was very, very fast. It rewarded you for the effort. And I kind of got all wrapped up into the Spark. The Spark RC, which just launched. Love the design of it. Love the idea of the twin lock, how the middle mode, goes from 120 millimeters of travel to 80, firms up the fork. Having to be able to adjust on the fly was just a really, really, cool thing to me. Although, yes, you're dealing with a remote, coming from the Epic where there was no remotes, but I just felt like it was definitely more advanced than what I was riding. So I chose to sell my S-Works and got into the Spark. First of all, I love the Spark. Still one of my favorite bikes, if not my favorite bike, that can do it all. But what I found is that it just kind of was so good and so compliant that it just kind of was like the ride in terms of my trail system was a little muted. So I was just anxious to get back on another S-Works Epic. But the World Cup was really what intrigued me. Obviously they've made this World Cup integrated design rear shock a very similar feel to the brain without that notorious knock. And this bike that I have here does not even have a race day damper in it, nor does it have a brain. It actually has the flight attendant, which I'll get into in a minute. But I think that this setup with these team wheels that are sub 1,200 grams is just an absolute rocket ship. I was literally blown away with 3 pedal strokes, and it felt like I had a road bike, in the woods, but yet I had a full suspension bike. And again, not a soft tail. This is the way that it's set up with mid-gulp. It does offer some compliance. There's really no sag. I would say maybe a millimeter or two at most in the mid-gulp, but that's definitely the perfect balance for my trail system. It definitely opened up, it felt lively. It felt like a full suspension bike. It soaked up the roots. It didn't limit me in any capacity, but what I really enjoyed the most is that I was able to feel the ground. I was able to feel the trail. I guess my Spark was so good at dampening that it just was so muted, and the ride was a little boring. I'm not a big guy that's doing jumps. So I just felt that I wanted to get back at something a little bit twitchier, a lot lighter. It's about 2.5, almost 3 pounds lighter. But I missed that ride of that Epic. I missed that lively ride. So this bike definitely delivered. Was blown away by it. I spent some time setting up the rear shock, played around with the gulp settings, and I found that mid gulp is definitely where I'm comfortable at. No gulp is basically a hardtail with a blow off. And then full gulp is a little bit too soft for my wish of how I want this bike to handle. So basically, I just kind of set it up in the middle little mark there, which is interesting. So you're basically setting up the positive and negative air chamber separately versus a transfer valve. So basically, you take all the air out of the shock, you compress the shock right down to that halfway mark there. Then there's a relief valve on the other side of this here. And that basically sets one of the air chambers. And then you basically just pump up the other positive or negative. I don't know which one you're actually, I assume it's the positive air chamber. And you just set it to your desired pressure relative to your weight, and you're off. It's literally that simple. And again, blown away by how this rode. It delivered exactly what I was hoping it would be and more. And I think that had a lot to do with not just this design, but also how slack it is. It's actually slacker than the Epic 8, And I felt like I didn't actually need a dropper on it because I just felt so confident, with the head tube angle, where I didn't feel like, I had too much pressure over the bars. I was able to kind of lean back a little bit and still have plenty of control. But the flight attendant in the fork is awesome. I can only imagine what it's like in the rear if you were to go with the Epic 8. But I left it in auto mode, and Case basically does all the thinking for you. Takes information from the power meter, takes information from elevation, or in this case, the grade, and kind of applies the right dampening for the right power and condition, and it's adjusting constantly on the fly like a Formula One transmission. So really, really cool there. I was very excited about that. I did put it into auto mode and kind of played with it open, and then pedal, but I felt that auto was right on. There's no reason to even try to mess around with the remote and play with the modes. Just let it do its thing, and that's why it exists. So very, very happy. And the last thing I want to touch on is, two more things, is the wheels. Carbon spoke, milled out one DT180 hubs, 1,190 grams with these Renegade tires that are about 650 grams a pop. Absolute lightning. You literally press down, the bike just lunges underneath you, which is kind of like what you feel like on a road bike. So again, completely blown away there. Super excited about it, and anxious to kind of get more time here. The transmission is flawless. I did notice that it definitely does shift marginally slower than the Eagle Axis. Not a deal breaker, but being able to shift under full load, I was climbing and the gradient got a little steeper, and I was able to shift while I was standing under full power, and no problems. There wasn't any delay in shifting. I think it's probably on par, if not the best group set I've ever had. Again, it is slower and not noticeable where you're going to be suffering because of it, but it is a little slower shifting. But I would hope that has something to do with the precise and precision to be able to handle that load with these ramps up here on this XX cassette here. So super thrilled about the bike. If you are interested in this bike and you're looking for a fun, fast, still a little playful, you're not doing big jumps, but you want to ride it hard and fast, and it rewards you for every single pedal stroke without suffering and getting banged apart on a hardtail, this is definitely a huge compromise. I mean, right here, at 20.22 pounds with no pedals, a little over 20 pounds with pedals, cages, the SWAT. It is probably just as light as some of the hardtails out there, and delivering way more comfort than you can ever ask for. So something that you should consider if you're looking to get into something a little bit more racier, but yet forgiving, but also enough feedback where you feel like the bike is alive and not so muted and dull. I find that, again, the longer travel bikes with my trail system are kind of taking away a little bit of the fun, just because it's just so plush and so forgiving that it's just kind of like, it's not as an exciting ride. So again, that's just my feedback. That's just my opinion. Just wanted to kind of get out there with my initial impressions here. I will start messing around with the settings on the shock here just to kind of see how aggressive I can be on the gulp settings. I was watching a video where Chris Blevins actually doesn't even set it to half gulp. He sets it to quarter gulp, so not full gulp, where he's running it completely rigid, but I'll set it up right around here, which is a little firmer than half gulp, but not as rigid as no gulp. So yeah, just some interesting feedback there I saw in one of his videos. So if you have any questions, please feel free to hit me up in the comments, and I urge you to please hit that like and subscribe button here. It helps support the channel, helps grow the channel, and I enjoy the dialogue and feedback. Thank you. Be well.